It's good to be back with you again, Ruby Payne. It's been a hard year, and it seems like it doesn't end. COVID, the disease. Then we had Snowvid, the freeze. And then we have a glitch with state assessment, and it never stops. And one of the things that happens is the weariness of it, the grieving. Every time you think you've hit a new plateau, there's something else happens. The other day, I don't know if you've had a day like this or a whatever, but I had a meltdown. And what happened is I had gotten a violent stomach virus over the weekend. And I mean, it was violent. It's one of those where you vomit, you think you lost some of your toenails, okay? It's just that bad, right? So it took a couple days to recover from that. I barely recovered. Then my computer decided to not function. I don't know if you have this, but some days you get there and your computer, it's like it's laughing at you behind your back before you ever get there. Like, oh, you thought you were going to work today? So that took a couple hours. And then my husband, I ran an errand, came back. He didn't know I was home. He went somewhere, set the alarm. Okay, I'm in the bathroom. Now, I don't know about you, but you got 30 seconds to get there to shut the alarm off before they call the cops. And I was like, it wasn't pretty. And I sat down and I went, does it have to be this hard? And then I was reading Jordan Peterson and his latest book. And he said some things in there that really made me think. He said, grieving is actually about love. And he said the thing about grieving is it's a strange phenomenon because you don't know when it's going to hit you. And you don't know how it's going to hit you. And it can be a trigger, a memory, and all of a sudden you're like, oh. And there's been so many losses. And one thing he said about grieving is that you don't grieve something you don't love. And I thought, that's interesting. And then he made this comment. Loving something or someone is actually a choice. And you not only love them for who they are, but for their limitations. In fact, sometimes you love them for that limitation. And it's part of the parcel and package. And I realized, I have a choice. He went on to say, it's always a choice, whether you love or not. And I thought, here you are in a meltdown. You're making people's lives around you miserable. Why? You have a choice. You can make them better. You can choose to love. And he said between that choice to love and the actual act takes courage. Because you're actually walking into the unknown. So, and you're looking at the unpredictable. And it might not pay off, but you made the choice. So what I'd like to give you are 3 things to think about. Number 1, and these are what I did. Number 1, focus on the end result. I said to myself, Ruby, when this thing is all over, what do you still want in your life? What is it that you want to make sure you maintain, regardless of how difficult it becomes, because you've chosen to love it? And one thing was, I want to keep my marriage intact. Another thing was that I want to make sure that I have an avenue to continue to do what I love, which is advocate for children and their well-being. And number 3, I want to make sure that my larger family is still a part of my circle. And so I thought, that's all you have to focus on. What you want, why you want it, and how you're going to get there. And that means you can't have these kinds of meltdowns. You'll never get there with that. And then the second thing he said was this, is that grieving, you can't have grief without love. In other words, you can't have darkness without light. You have the contrast. We wouldn't love light if we didn't have darkness. Or we wouldn't grieve if we didn't love. So I started thinking about that in terms of what I love and the limitations of it. Recently, I was at a dinner party, and the person's mother-in-law was there, and she was 88, walking, articulate, walking on both legs, driving a car. I said, I am absolutely delighted. And they were appalled. They said, she lies all the time. I said, I don't care if she lies, okay? The bottom line is, look at her. She's 88. She smokes like a smokestack. She's walking. She's driving. I would have given anything if my mother had been like that at 88. And so I said, I get that you love her, and I get she's got limitations, but that's part of who she is and what makes her what she is. So the question becomes can you love with the limitations? And the last thing is I want to end with a quote from Jordan Peterson. And he said this: love is the ultimate aim, the desire to create the very best that can be created. Because after all, in the end, that's what matters. So thank you so much for surviving this hard year, for the courage to continue in the face of darkness and uncertainty. And most of all, thank you for the love you bring to the children. I am so grateful.